Okay, guys, so today I'm going to present my Decolonial Worldmaking project. The purpose of this project was to explore past and modern examples of native abuse and control and how governmental greed fueled the majority of these events, whether it's past or modern. So moving on to this slide, all right, here we have the Trail of Tears, a depiction and illustration of it side by side with an article talking about the culture, titling it "It's Cultural Genocide." The Trail of Tears, we all know as an early series of events in the 1800s in which natives were forced to move from their lands, from their eastern lands, and forced to move west away from their homes, forced to sell their properties or just leave them outright. Obviously, that's not ideal or far from ideal. They loved these lands. They called these lands home, and they were kicked out. Similar reasons behind the article on the right. So the Keystone Pipeline was being built for oil. Obviously, the oil would have brought in massive amounts of money for the government, and they decided to build this pipeline on Indian reservation, and they did not care about the native opinion. It's purely for an aspect of greed. They just couldn't get enough, and they wanted to build on these lands when they really had no right to. Black Hawk War, 1832. On the right, it's an article of the Trump administration taking away reservation status. So again, both of the underlying reasons on these slides, greed. On the left, shortly explain the events. So once these soldiers, American soldiers, passed the Mississippi River into Illinois, the Sauk tribe obviously was upset about this. These were their lands, and the Americans had no other intention but taking them from the Sauks, and which they did. They wanted to keep on conquering and controlling more land and taking it for their own. Same in terms of brutality, it's different, but in terms of the underlying reason, same thing on the right. So Trump administration took away 300 acres away from natives. They wanted to use it for federal government land, although it already had reservation status, and the government just obviously couldn't get enough land. So Battle of Little Bighorn, 1876, and Wounded Knee in 1973, I believe. Yeah, so the two things that make these similar, so both involved the revolting of native peoples, and they also involved in the surrendering of native people as well, basically. So Battle of Little Bighorn, they actually won. General Custer and his army were defeated by this Indian tribe. But they were so scared that the government was going to send in more soldiers, as they just killed all of the soldiers they already sent there. So they left the land that they just defended successfully anyways, and out of fear for their lives. And then on Wounded Knee, this was an event in which over 200 natives sat in Wounded Knee, South Dakota, and they wanted to take back this land for their own. And it took close to 70 days, in which they eventually surrendered to the U.S. Marshals, but both involve the natives becoming angry and revolting against their government as a result of greed from their government. So this is the Homestead Act, 1862, and the federal government keeping natives in poverty. So just to cover this super quickly, as we're running out of time, the Homestead Act, 1862, was an act in which it was encouraging Americans to move westward. And if you're encouraging Americans to move westward, you're also encouraging them to take over native lands. And then on the right, it's an article about how natives, 5 ways how natives are being kept in poverty. Basically, over time, the government has just kept natives in poverty because of their greed, as they were able to, and only benefits them. Thank you guys so much for listening to my project, and I hope you guys have interesting projects to share too, and I'm excited to hear them.